Ladies and gentlemen, let us talk about David Kenani Maraga, the man who is throwing his weight towards running for presidency late come 2027. The man who become one of Africa president of the Supreme Court who nullified a presidential election. The man who want to change this country to have rule of law. David Kenani Maraga has actually launched his presidential bid towards 2027. And David Kenani Maraga, when he was asked, why did you choose to run for presidency late come 2027? He only said that he chose to run for 2027 presidential election because the country is actually going to the dogs. And he doesn't want that to happen. And because the way things are being run in this country, that is why David Kenani Maraga has sought out to run for presidency so that he can correct the way this country is run politically and economically. So that is actually what I want us to have as our candid discussion. But before we dive in and try to dissect who David Kenani Maraga is and why he is choosing to run for presidency, I would like you to listen to this interview which David Kenani Maraga was actually interviewed on Citizen TV. Please have a listen to this.
However, running a campaign costs money.
Yes.
You'll need to hire vehicles. You'll
Correct.
need to,
Correct.
PA systems or whatever it is.
Yes.
Have you done an assessment of what you will need and where you're going to get that money from?
Yes. It is being worked. The details are being worked on. We will require quite a substantial amount of money.
Do you know how much?
I won't tell now. My people are working on the likely budget. But I'm convinced we are going to appeal to Kenyans, including Yvonne, to contribute to our campaign, and it's going to succeed. The Kenyans will themselves fund this election, and once we are funded and get elected,
yeah,
you can rest assured that anybody trying to twist us or do anything, will tell him, look, this is a Wanjiku funded presidency.
Yeah, but so, be that as it may, CJ, Kenyans are going through a tough time. The cost of living is high. What you're talking about is projections and,
yes,
and hopes that people will fund your campaign. Are you putting in any money yourself?
Very little.
Okay.
Yes, very little.
How much?
I mean, 1-2 million shillings. Okay. I don't have much money. I don't have much money. But Yvonne,
and if you don't get the funding that you require from others, I mean, it's sort of like a budgeting issue, isn't it? Like,
yes,
you make projections that you will get X amount from, well-wishers or Kenyans of goodwill, as you might call them. If you have a funding gap, right, in your campaign operations, how are you going to plug that gap?
It is not going to be there. Let me tell you that. The people we are talking to, some we are meeting, are saying, look, when are you setting up the pay bill? We are going to pay. We are not asking a lot of money from individuals. We will leave it open for somebody with the suffering the Kenyans have gone through. I can assure you that getting 10, 20, 50 shillings from individuals, 100 shillings will come in. And I can assure you that the assurances we have been given from across the country, we are going to, in fact, if anything, we are hoping to get excess. And my view is that once we get excess, whatever will be left, we'll give it to a public cause.
At some point, will you make this public?
Yes. We're going
what your budget is, what you're hoping to get from the public, and how much you're putting in?
Exactly.
After listening to that, it is quite clear that David Kenani Maraga wants to run for presidency of this nation. And he has said that clearly. And you know, David Kenani Maraga is a son of the Gusii community. And currently, we also have another son of the Gusii community who is actually running for presidency of this nation. And a community to have two intellectuals who are actually running for presidency for this nation is oppressing, and it might be a curse. So David Kenani Maraga is actually running for presidency, and Fredo Kengo Matiang'i is also running for presidency. And what actually makes David Kenani Maraga to be quite attractive to the people of this nation, such that they can tell him, Mister, you need to run for presidency of this nation. It is because of the braveness of David Kenani Maraga. It is because David Kenani Maraga did what men churches can never do. He nullified a presidential election. And this actually gave David Kenani Maraga a limelight. And people now know David Kenani Maraga as a person who stands for the rule of law. He made the courts of this nation to be seen to be independent and to be seen to be just. When David Kenani Maraga nullified a presidential election and he ordered a repeat because there were a lot of irregularity to that presidential election, this shocked the world, this shocked Africa, and this shocked Kenya. But because of that act, it made many people to believe on David Kenani Maraga as a person who is straightforward. And David Kenani Maraga is now stepping at presidency. And many people feel this is the person the country needs. Many people accuse David Kenani Maraga that he is not a politician and he is entering into the political scene, which is actually a dirty ground. Because as you can remember, since the time of Moi always told us that politics is a dirty game. And David Maraga has actually dived into these murky waters of politics. And the first question we have to ask, because this nation, you will find that politics is actually run by tribes. You must be a kingpin of a certain tribe for you to run for presidency. You must be seen that you have a following from your community for you to make it in presidency. But David Kenani Maraga is a person who is going out from all those odds. Because we can say for now that the Gusii community has actually decided that it will support Fred Okengo Matiang'i. But David Kenani Maraga has insisted that he is going to run for presidency, let come 2027. We have very many critics who feel that David Kenani Maraga is actually being supported by somebody who has ill motives. Even we have people who believe that David Kenani Maraga is actually supported by President William Samoei Arap Ruto, because they believe that David Kenani Maraga doesn't have the money which he will use for campaigning, because David Kenani Maraga has been a professional. And as you know, in this nation, if you become professionally, it doesn't pay. It will not give you the money which you might need for campaigning. But David Kenani Maraga, from that interview at Citizen TV, he explained himself clearly that because we allow people to dish their money, and once they get presidency, the first thing they need to do is to get back their finances. And that is what makes this country to be run the way it is. And David Kenani Maraga has said that he will only contribute to his campaign about 2 million. And the rest will be contributed by the people of this nation. Will that be easy? But I tell you, many people of this nation are actually yearning for new, fresh minds in our political arena. And if they get David Kenani Maraga to be very genuine, I'm very sure many people will contribute to his kit so that he can run for presidency, so that he can rescue this country politically and economically. Because many people believe that the way this country is run is so bad, and they want that to be corrected. They are yearning for a new start. And many people believe that it is David Kenani Maraga who can do that. But will it be easy? Because already for now we are saying that because our politics is tribal run. Fred Okengo has actually taken the home turf of David Kenani Maraga. He is the so-called kingpin of the Gusii community, where Maraga comes from. Will it be easy? But let me also ask you a very simple question. If today we were to vote and you find these names on the voting list, you have David Kenani Maraga, you have Fred Okengo, you have Rigathi Gachagua, you have President William Samoei Arap Ruto, and also you have Stephen Kalonzo Musyoka. Who will you give your vote? Will you vote in for David Kenani Maraga? Please, I would like you to vote right now, because I'm interested to see the number of people who can vote behind David Kenani Maraga. Let me give you a minute so that you can vote. Have you done that? Please vote, because I want to see whether people will vote in for David Kenani Maraga. I hope you have done that. And I am going to go to that list to read and to see how many people who are actually going to vote for David Kenani Maraga. And when it comes to the funding, as David Kenani Maraga has said, he is going to fund his campaign and the Kenyans. But I sometimes feel that there are people who are behind David Kenani Maraga. You may find that we have civil societies who believe on David Kenani Maraga, and they might actually fund David Kenani Maraga so that he can run for presidency. As many people say that David Kenani Maraga can also be funded by the government silently, and he will run for presidency to make sure that he will divide opposition. That is also another possibility. Also, countries like United States, countries like Britain, they may actually throw their weight and fund David Kenani Maraga to run for presidency. So David Kenani Maraga may actually get funds so that he can move forward his campaign towards 2027. And if David Kenani Maraga is going to run, where do you think David Kenani Maraga should actually pick his deputy from? Sometimes I feel that David Kenani Maraga may actually look for a deputy from central Kenya or from Ukambani Nation. And also, he can even pick from the western side of the country. He can get Omtata to be his deputy. Which part do you think, if David Kenani Maraga chooses his deputy, things will go well, smoothly? Please also drop your comment on that. Another thing which I actually want to talk about David Kenani Maraga, or which group do you think it is supporting David Kenani Maraga? Sometimes I feel that the Gen Zs will actually support David Kenani Maraga than anybody else. Because I feel that because Gen Zs have always been insisted that they are tribalist, they don't vote having the tribal thing in mind. And if that comes to realization, then I am very sure that David Kenani Maraga will be the leader who the Gen Zs will actually vote for. Because the Gen Zs will believe that David Kenani Maraga is the person who they want, a man of integrity, a man who has not been soiled with the politics of this country, and a man who has offered himself to the political arena by not actually coming up as a person who has been identified by his community. So if it is true that the Gen Zs are still tribalist, then the best person they can actually vote in for is David Kenani Maraga. And I think many Gen Zs are behind David Kenani Maraga, and that is a constitute of a group of people who have actually forced David Kenani Maraga to run for presidency of this nation. I really don't know what is your take about David Kenani Maraga running for presidency of this nation. Please drop your comment in the comment section below. And if this is your first time to bump into this YouTube channel, I request you kindly to take a minute or two and subscribe to this YouTube channel. Give this video a like, share the video to your friends, and if your friends are lovers of politics, then it's good to request them for us to subscribe to this YouTube channel. And for those ones who have actually subscribed to our YouTube channel, I say thank you. May God bless you all abundantly, because you always give us the inspiration to continue coming up with this kind of political analysis. And with that, I say thank you until we meet in our next political conversation. Goodbye.